The gentle patter of rain against the windows of the Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurant in downtown Portland created a soothing rhythm that contrasted with the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Outside, sleek luxury cars splashed through puddles, their headlights cutting through the early evening gloom. Inside, the aroma of fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and gravy hung in the air, mingling with the scent of wet clothes and umbrellas. In the corner booth, a man sat alone, dressed in simple black jeans and a well-worn dark gray sweater that had seen better days. His beard was slightly unkempt, and his long hair was tucked behind his ears, still damp from the rain. Nothing about him screamed wealth or status, just another patron seeking shelter from the storm while enjoying a modest meal. His motorcycle helmet rested on the bench beside him, water droplets still clinging to its surface. His hands, weathered but gentle, cradled a paper cup of coffee as he gazed out at the rain, seemingly lost in thought. Across the restaurant, Vanessa Hayes adjusted her designer blazer and checked her reflection in her compact mirror. The 30-something marketing executive had ducked into this KFC only because the rain had caught her off guard after her salon appointment. Under normal circumstances, she wouldn't be caught dead in a fast food establishment. She had an image to maintain, after all. Her Louboutin heels clicked against the linoleum floor as she carried her small Caesar salad, the only menu item she deemed acceptable, to a table, careful not to brush against any of the other patrons. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" asked a soft voice. Vanessa looked up to see a woman in her early 30s, holding the hands of two little girls who couldn't have been more than 7 and 5 years old. The woman's coat was drenched, her makeup slightly smudged from the rain, and she had the harried look of a mother who had been on her feet all day. "We're pretty packed because of the rain," the woman explained apologetically, gesturing to the crowded restaurant. Indeed, every table was occupied except for the empty chairs at Vanessa's table and the lone man's booth. "Actually, I prefer to dine alone," Vanessa replied coolly, placing her designer handbag on the chair beside her to make her point clear. The woman's face fell slightly, but she nodded with understanding. "Of course, sorry to bother you." As the trio turned away, Vanessa noticed the bearded man in the corner booth raise his hand in a welcoming gesture. "You're welcome to join me," he offered, his voice warm and gravelly. "There's plenty of room." The woman looked relieved. "Are you sure? We don't want to impose." "Not at all," he replied with a kind smile, moving his helmet to make space. "Please, sit down." The little girls clambered into the booth, their eyes wide with excitement at the prospect of chicken and mashed potatoes, while their mother slid in beside them, thanking the man profusely. "I'm Sarah," the woman introduced herself. "And these are my daughters, Lily and Emma." "Nice to meet you all," the man replied with a gentle nod. We know who you are," the older girl, Lily, interrupted with a giggle. "You're the man from the movies." The man's eyes crinkled with amusement, but he placed a finger to his lips in a playful shushing gesture. "Let's keep that our secret for now, okay?" Vanessa, despite herself, found her attention drawn to the interaction. There was something familiar about the man's profile, but she couldn't quite place it. Just another scruffy Portland type, she decided, turning her attention back to her salad and her phone. Sarah ordered a family meal for herself and her daughters, apologizing again for the intrusion. "Please, don't apologize," the man insisted. "It's nice to have company." As they waited for their food, the girls chatted animatedly, their earlier shyness evaporating in the presence of the kind stranger. Emma, the younger one, was showing him her drawing from school, a colorful depiction of what appeared to be a garden. "That's beautiful," the man said, studying the crayon creation with genuine interest. "You've got a real talent there." Emma beamed. "I want to be an artist when I grow up." "You already are an artist," he replied without hesitation. "Age has nothing to do with it." Lily tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Mom, can I show him the letter?" Sarah hesitated. "Sweetie, I don't think—" "It's okay," the man assured her. "What letter is this?" Lily reached into her small backpack and pulled out a slightly crumpled envelope. "We wrote it for our dad, but he can't read it because he's in heaven now." The restaurant seemed to grow quieter, though the ambient noise hadn't changed. Sarah's eyes glistened, and she stroked her daughter's hair. "My husband, David, passed away last year. Cancer." The girls sometimes write him letters when they miss him. The man's expression softened with compassion. I'm very sorry to hear that. Lily held out the envelope. Would you read it for us? Maybe if you read it, it can reach heaven faster. The innocence of the request hung in the air. Sarah started to intervene, but the man gently accepted the envelope. I'd be honored, he said softly. Are you sure you want me to read it out loud? Both girls nodded solemnly. The man carefully opened the envelope and unfolded the sheet of notebook paper covered in a child's handwriting, decorated with stickers and heart drawings in the margins. He cleared his throat and began to read. Dear Daddy, we miss you lots and lots. Mom says you're watching us from heaven. Can you see us? Emma learned to tie her shoes, and I got an A in spelling. Mom works really hard, but she cries sometimes when she thinks we're sleeping. The house feels empty without you. Remember how you used to make pancakes shaped like animals on Sundays? Mom tries, but they just look like blobs. We laugh about it, though. My teacher says when people die, they become stars in the sky. Are you a star, Daddy? Which one? I look for the brightest one. Today at school, Jake said I don't have a real family anymore because I don't have a dad. It made my heart hurt. Mom says we are still a real family, just different now. But I wish you were here to tell Jake he's wrong. Sometimes when I'm sad, I remember what you told me before you went to sleep the last time. You said love doesn't disappear, it just changes shape. I don't understand what that means, but it makes me feel better. I hope heaven has ice cream and movies. I hope you're not lonely. Mom says you're with Grandpa Joe and Uncle Mike now. We love you infinity times infinity. Lily and Emma. The man's voice faltered on the last words. When he looked up, his eyes were shining with tears he was trying to contain. A single drop escaped, rolling down his cheek and disappearing into his beard. Sarah reached across the table and touched his hand. I'm so sorry. We shouldn't have asked you to do that. He shook his head, carefully refolding the letter. No, I thank you for letting me read it. He handed the letter back to Lily, who was watching him with curious eyes. Are you sad? She asked. Yes, he admitted, but it's the kind of sad that comes from remembering what matters most. Emma, the younger sister, tilted her head. Did your daddy go to heaven too? The man nodded. Yes, he did. A long time ago. Do you write him letters? Lily wanted to know. A gentle smile crossed his face. Not on paper, but I talk to him in my mind. Does he answer back? Emma's eyes were wide. Not with words, the man replied thoughtfully. But sometimes, when I'm riding my motorcycle really fast and the wind is so loud I can't hear anything else, I feel like he's right there with me. From her table, Vanessa couldn't help but eavesdrop on the conversation. There was definitely something familiar about the man, the timbre of his voice, the way he moved his hands when he spoke. She studied him more carefully, taking in his features, trying to place him. Their food arrived, creating a momentary distraction. The man insisted on paying for Sarah and her daughter's meal, waving away her protests. Please let me do this, he said simply. It would mean a lot to me. As they ate, the girls continued to pepper the man with questions, which he answered with patient sincerity. He never talked down to them or dismissed their queries, no matter how childlike or profound. If love changes shape, Lily asked between bites of mashed potato, what shape is it supposed to be? The man considered this seriously. I think love is like water. It can be a solid, a liquid, or even invisible like steam, but it's always there, just changing forms. Emma nodded as if this made perfect sense to her. Like how Daddy used to give us hugs, but now he gives us signs? Exactly like that, the man agreed. What kind of signs does he give you? Sometimes a butterfly lands on Mom's car when we're sad, Emma explained, and Lily found a penny on her birthday in her shoe. The year Daddy was born, Lily added importantly. Sarah wiped a tear from her cheek. They notice these little coincidences. It helps them process things. They're not coincidences, the man said gently. They're listening for him, so they hear him. By now, Vanessa had completely abandoned the pretense of not listening. The conversation had struck a chord somewhere deep inside her, a place she usually kept carefully guarded. She found herself thinking of her own father, whom she hadn't spoken to in 5 years after a disagreement about her career choices. The last she'd heard, he was living in a small apartment in Florida, alone since her mother had passed. Do you have kids? Sarah asked the man. He shook his head. No, I don't. You'd be a good dad, Lily declared with a child's certainty. You listen good. The man's smile was tinged with something that looked like wistfulness. Thank you. That's very kind. Our dad used to say that kindness is like a boomerang, Emma announced, dropping a piece of chicken on the floor and quickly picking it up. It always comes back. Your dad sounds like a very wise man, the man replied. He was the best, Lily said firmly. He knew how to fix anything, and he never ever yelled, even when I spilled juice on his work computer. Sarah laughed softly at the memory. He was pretty upset about that one, but he didn't show it. That's real strength, the man observed. Not hiding your feelings, but choosing which ones to share when. Outside, the rain had intensified, drumming against the roof of the restaurant. The lights flickered briefly, causing a momentary hush to fall over the patrons. In that brief silence, Emma leaned over and whispered something in the man's ear. Whatever she said caused his composure to crack completely. His shoulders trembled slightly, and he raised a hand to cover his eyes. When he lowered it, his face was wet with tears he no longer tried to conceal. He whispered something back to Emma, who nodded solemnly and then crawled over the table to give him a hug, her small arms barely reaching around his shoulders. Lily joined her sister, and for a moment the man sat there, embraced by these two children, his eyes closed as tears continued to fall. Sarah watched with a mixture of surprise and understanding, though she couldn't have heard what was whispered. Across the restaurant, Vanessa felt something shift inside her. The scene before her, this grown man allowing himself to be vulnerable in the presence of strangers, these children offering comfort with the uncomplicated generosity that only children possess, touched something she had buried under years of professional ambition and carefully cultivated detachment. The moment was broken when the front door of the KFC burst open, and a young man rushed in, shaking rain from his jacket. He scanned the restaurant until his eyes landed on the bearded man in the corner booth. "There you are," he exclaimed, hurrying over. "I've been looking all over for you. The car broke down, and my phone died." And he stopped abruptly, noticing the man's tear-streaked face and the children now settling back into their seats. Is everything okay, Keanu?" A ripple of recognition went through the restaurant. Vanessa nearly dropped her fork. Keanu Reeves. Of course. How had she not realized immediately? Keanu, for it was indeed him, wiped his face with a napkin and stood up, collecting his helmet. "Everything's fine, Josh. Just having a nice conversation." He turned to Sarah and her daughters. "Thank you for sharing your table and your stories with me." "Thank you for listening," Sarah replied, looking slightly dazed now that she fully comprehended who had been sitting with them. "And for dinner." Lily tugged at his sleeve. "Will you remember what I told you to tell your dad when you talked to him?" Keanu knelt down to eye level with the girl. "I will remember every word," he promised. "And I'll think of you when I'm riding my motorcycle really fast with the wind in my ears." Emma gave him one more quick hug. "Remember, sad is just another shape of happy," she whispered, loud enough this time for others to hear. Keanu nodded, visibly moved. "The wisest things I've ever heard have come from people your size," he told her. As he stood to leave, he noticed Vanessa watching him. Their eyes met briefly, and she felt a flush of embarrassment at having been caught staring. To her surprise, he gave her a small nod of acknowledgement before heading toward the door with his assistant. Just before leaving, Keanu turned back to the restaurant at large. "The food's on me tonight," he told the cashier, handing over his credit card. "For everyone here." A murmur of surprise and delight rippled through the restaurant as he slipped out into the rain, the door swinging shut behind him. For a moment, no one moved, as if breaking the spell would somehow diminish what had just occurred. Then, gradually, the buzz of conversation resumed, though with a different quality than before, warmer, more connected, as strangers turned to each other to confirm what they had witnessed. Vanessa found herself getting up from her table and walking over to where Sarah and her daughters were still sitting, looking slightly shell-shocked. "I couldn't help overhearing," Vanessa began awkwardly. I'm sorry about your husband." Sarah looked up, surprised. "Thank you." "I was wondering," Vanessa continued, "what did your daughter whisper to him? The thing that made him cry?" Sarah glanced at Emma, who was contentedly finishing her mashed potatoes. I'm not sure. Emma, honey, what did you say to the nice man? Emma looked up, her face smeared with gravy. I told him that Daddy said the saddest people are the ones who need love the most, but they're scared to ask for it. And I asked if he was scared to ask for it because he looked sad behind his eyes like Mom sometimes does. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. Emma, sweetie. It's okay, Emma assured her mother. He told me he was working on being braver about it, and I told him sad is just another shape of happy, like how water can be ice. Vanessa felt something constrict in her chest. That's very profound. Would you like to sit with us? Sarah offered, gesturing to the now empty spot across from them, unless you prefer to dine alone. The gentle callback to Vanessa's earlier dismissal wasn't accusatory, just an acknowledgement of what had transpired. Vanessa hesitated only a moment before picking up her things and joining them. I'm Vanessa, she introduced herself, sliding into the booth. I'm Sarah. These are my daughters, Lily and Emma. I know, Vanessa said with a small smile. I've been eavesdropping shamelessly for the past half hour. Sarah laughed, a genuine sound that seemed to brighten the corner of the restaurant. Well, it's not every day you end up sharing dinner with Keanu Reeves. I think I would have learned more from sharing dinner with you three, Vanessa admitted. As the rain continued to fall outside, casting the world in shades of gray and blue, the inside of the KFC glowed with a warmth that had little to do with the heating system. Across the restaurant, strangers were introducing themselves to one another, sharing stories and laughter, the barriers between them temporarily dissolved by the unexpected encounter with kindness in its purest form. In the parking lot, sheltered momentarily beneath the overhang, Keanu Reeves sat on his motorcycle, rain dripping from his helmet. His assistant waited in a car nearby, the headlights illuminating the silver curtain of rainfall. Keanu's mind was still filled with the words of a child, simple, unfiltered wisdom that had cut through his carefully maintained composure. In his work, he portrayed grief and love with an authenticity that resonated with audiences worldwide. But Emma's innocent observation, that he looked sad behind his eyes, had touched on a truth he rarely acknowledged, even to himself. The loss of his own father, the stillbirth of his daughter years ago, the death of his former partner, these sorrows he carried quietly, channeling them into his art rather than his words. Yet somehow a 5-year-old girl had seen past the barriers he'd constructed and offered wisdom that now reverberated through him. Sad is just another shape of happy. He started the motorcycle, its engine rumbling to life beneath him. As he pulled out into the rain, he felt a sense of lightness that hadn't been there before. Perhaps it was true what the girls had said about their father's presence in butterflies and pennies. Perhaps the universe did conspire to deliver messages when they were most needed, through the most unexpected messengers. The rain beat against his helmet, and the wind rushed past, loud in his ears. And in that moment, speeding through the wet streets of Portland, Keanu Reeves felt less alone. Inside the KFC, life continued to unfold in its beautiful, messy way. Sarah shared stories of her husband with Vanessa, who found herself opening up about her estranged relationship with her father. The girls drew pictures on napkins, creating a colorful landscape of their family, past, present, and imagined future. I should call him, Vanessa realized aloud, thinking of her father alone in Florida. Before it's too late, Sarah reached across the table and squeezed her hand. It's never too late for love to change shape. As the evening deepened into night, the unlikely companions lingered, reluctant to break the connection that had formed between them. Around them, other patrons did the same. The fast food restaurant transformed temporarily into something else, a gathering place, a confessional, a space where the boundaries between strangers dissolved in the wake of a shared experience. Outside, the rain gradually subsided, stars emerging from behind the clouds to cast their ancient light on the world below. Each one, perhaps, a message from someone loved and lost, if only we have the wisdom to listen as children do. In a city known for keeping things weird, perhaps the strangest thing of all was how an ordinary evening at KFC had become extraordinary. Not because a famous actor had graced its vinyl booths, but because for a few hours, The customers had glimpsed the profound connection possible when we allow ourselves to be truly seen by one another. As Emma had whispered to Keanu Reeves, causing tears to fall from a man who had portrayed everything from Buddha to John Wick, the saddest people are the ones who need love the most, but they're scared to ask for it. That night, in a KFC in Portland, no one had needed to ask. Love had simply arrived, changing shape as needed, from a letter to a departed father, to the wisdom of children, to the vulnerability of a movie star, to strangers becoming friends over cooling mashed potatoes and stories that needed telling. And perhaps, in some unseen realm, David was smiling down on his family, watching as the love he had left behind continued to transform and grow, touching lives he could never have imagined in ways no one could have predicted. Just as water changes form but never truly disappears, so too does love find new expressions, new vessels, carrying forward the essence of what matters most, long after the initial source has gone. The following morning, a local Portland newspaper ran a small story about Keanu Reeves' surprise appearance at a KFC during the rainstorm. The article mentioned the actor's generosity in paying for everyone's meals, but it failed to capture the deeper significance of what had transpired. No reporter could have known about the letter to a father in heaven, or the whispered wisdom of a 5-year-old girl, or the tears of a man who had brought joy to millions while carrying his own sorrows quietly. But those who were there carried the memory with them, a reminder that behind our carefully constructed public faces, we all share the same fundamental needs: to be seen, to be heard, to connect, to matter. Vanessa Hayes, who had entered the KFC believing herself separate from and superior to those around her, left with the phone number of a widowed mother and a promise to meet again soon. That night, she made a call to Florida, her father's surprised voice bringing tears to her eyes as she finally began to bridge the chasm 5 years in the making. Sarah and her daughters returned home to their apartment, the girls chattering excitedly about their encounter with the man from the movies. As Sarah tucked them into bed, Lily asked if their letter would really reach their dad in heaven now. "I think it already has," Sarah told her, believing it for the first time. Across town, in a hotel suite far more luxurious than his humble appearance would have suggested, Keanu Reeves sat by the window, looking out at the city lights. On the nightstand beside him was a small napkin with a childish drawing, a gift from Emma before he'd left the restaurant. It depicted a motorcycle beneath a sky full of stars, with the words, "Remember, sad is just happy changing shape," written in crayon at the bottom. He'd asked the girl if he could keep it, and she had presented it to him with the solemnity of someone bestowing a priceless treasure. In many ways, she had. As the city slept beneath a now clear sky, countless invisible threads of connection stretched between people who had been strangers just hours before, proof that even in our most seemingly ordinary moments, extraordinary possibilities wait to unfold. All it takes is the courage to be seen, the willingness to see others, and perhaps, as Emma had so wisely observed, the understanding that our emotions, like water, like love itself, are constantly changing shape but never truly disappearing. In this recognition lies our shared humanity, the beautiful, messy reality of being alive, together, even when apart. And sometimes all it takes is an unexpected encounter in an unlikely place to remind us of this essential truth. For Keanu Reeves, for Sarah and her daughters, for Vanessa, and for everyone else present in that KFC on a rainy evening in Portland, something small but significant had shifted. A recalibration of what matters, a gentle awakening to the power of authentic connection. And perhaps in the end, that is the most extraordinary gift we can give one another. The simple yet profound recognition that behind our various masks and roles, movie star, executive, parent, child, we are all just people, navigating loss and love as best we can, seeking meaning in a world that often moves too fast for such contemplation. As Emma had whispered to a man whose characters had fought demons, both literal and metaphorical, on screen, the saddest people are the ones who need love the most, but they're scared to ask for it. That night in a KFC in Portland, nobody had needed to ask, and therein lay the miracle of what had transpired, ordinary and extraordinary all at once, like life itself. 3 months later, on a sunny afternoon in a small park near Sarah's apartment, a gathering took place. Picnic blankets dotted the grass, and children raced between trees, their laughter carrying on the breeze. Vanessa arrived carrying a homemade cake, her father beside her, their reconciliation still new and sometimes awkward, but genuine. Sarah welcomed them with hugs, introducing them to other friends and family members who had come to celebrate Lily's birthday. The event was simple but joyful, a testament to Sarah's belief that connections matter more than possessions. Lily opened presents with gleeful abandon, while Emma supervised to ensure each gift received appropriate appreciation. As the celebration continued, a motorcycle pulled up at the park's edge. The rider removed his helmet, revealing a face now familiar to everyone there. A surprise guest, just as promised in the card that had arrived a week earlier, with two exquisitely crafted art sets for the girls. Keanu Reeves, dressed as simply as he had been in the KFC, walked toward the gathering. There was no fanfare, no entourage, just a man keeping a promise made to two little girls who had shared their wisdom and their grief with him. "You came!" Emma cried, running to him with the unself-conscious enthusiasm of childhood. "I said I would," he replied, kneeling to accept her hug. As he joined the celebration, sitting cross-legged on a picnic blanket and declining any special treatment, the boundaries that typically separate the extraordinary from the ordinary once again dissolved. They were just people sharing cake and stories, connected by an encounter that had reminded each of them, in different ways, of an essential truth: that behind the roles we play and the masks we wear exists our common humanity, vulnerable, imperfect, and infinitely precious. And as the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the park, illuminating this unlikely gathering of souls brought together by chance and choice, the universe continued its ancient dance, stars forming and dying, water changing form, love transforming but never truly disappearing. In the grand scheme of existence, this small celebration in a Portland park might have seemed insignificant, but to those present, especially a certain movie star who had found unexpected healing in the words of a child, it was a reminder of what matters most in a world that often forgets: connection, compassion, and the courage to be seen for who we really are, sad eyes and all. As Emma had whispered in a KFC months before, causing tears to fall from the eyes of a man who had learned to hide his sorrows well, sad is just another shape of happy. And in that profound insight lay a truth worth remembering: that our emotions, like water, like love itself, are constantly changing form but never truly disappearing. We need only the wisdom to recognize them, whatever shape they take.